More on the NBA, let's bring in Andre Richelieu. He's a professor specializing in sports marketing at the School of Business in UQAM University in Montreal. Thank you for joining us.
My pleasure.
So give us an idea, just how important is the Chinese market overall to the NBA's financial success?
Well, the NBA is 6 times more popular in China than the 3 main soccer European championships combined. And I'm talking about the soccer championships of England, Spain, and Italy. This is one aspect. The second one is that in 2017, for the NBA Finals, 190 million Chinese have viewed the games via streaming. And itself is an important number, but I also mention this because China, and more precisely Alibaba and Ali Sports, are involved in this transition from broadcasting to streaming. And China is important for the NBA, but China is also an actor. And the NBA and Chinese companies are becoming partners in the development of the NBA brand in the Chinese market.
So as we're seeing these growing ties, why do you think that some teams, for example, the Warriors, the Knicks, and the Bulls, have placed more and more focus on Chinese New Year than other teams?
Well, I think it's a strategy. We call it in marketing glocalization. So you use the leverage of your global brand, the global appeal of your brand, but at the same time, for instance, in the communication aspects that you have mentioned, you try to get closer to your customers, closer to the big market in order to build a relationship of trust, a bond, a long-term commitment. And in China, it's very important. We call it guangxi, sorry for the pronunciation. And this is a way to show to the Chinese consumers that there's a long-term commitment towards the Chinese market. It's not a one shot that we do here and then we leave. We want to collaborate long-term with China because China will become the leading economy in a few years from now, but also China will be a part of the transformation of the sports industry and a big part of what the sports industry will become. So for brands like the NBA, the Chinese market is very important, and you have to do it the right way and talk to people in order to become relevant and communicate in a way that sends a message. We are here for the long term in order to develop a long-term, trustworthy relationship with you.
And speaking of doing things the right way, we know that the NBA is experiencing this record growth while we're seeing other leagues, say the NFL or even the Olympics, declining. What is the NBA's special recipe for success?
Well, just in line with what we've discussed, first of all, this willingness to get closer to their customers, both in North America, but also internationally, including in China. Also being a global relevant brand, but also adapting locally to the needs, wants, preferences of customers worldwide. And I should mention, thirdly, that in May of this year, the NBA will launch its own esports league in order to get closer to a younger generation, a younger audience, the famous millennials, in order to be more relevant to them, to appeal to them. So we see that the NBA is using traditional tools, but also adapting to the new technology in order to becoming front and center in this transformation of the sports industry and one of the leading sports brands worldwide.
Now, Andre, it's interesting because there have been several preseason NBA games in China, which have all ended up selling out, creating lots of buzz on social media, but no regular season games. Why is that?
Well, I can reassure our Chinese viewers that it will happen sooner rather than later. The Chinese market is very important to the NBA. China is becoming an actor in the sports industry. The relationship between the NBA and China, which started in the 1980s with some VHS tapes that were given to the Ministry of Sports, has come a long way now. So there's a long-term relationship that has been established, and not only for the size of the market, but also in order to establish and crystallize this relationship that traces back to decades now. The NBA will want to send a message that, you know, we are part of a strong relationship, you and I, and the regular games will come soon in China. I'm pretty sure of that. I don't know when, but I would say it's rather sooner than later. Absolutely.